Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending where you are in the world. Thank you for passing through on my channel. And basically, today I decided to do something different. And if it's the first time you're passing through, you're welcome to subscribe. You're welcome to share and like and interact with my subscribers. And yes, you'll never know what you're going to get with me. I kind of just go with the flow. Wherever my inspiration or my spirit takes me, that's the direction I go. So today, I decided to think about who we mirror, who are our role models, who can help us, why are people in the world, why do some people succeed while others fail, what is it about certain individuals that make them great. And I was looking at something to do with Naomi Osaka, the tennis player, and I thought she had so much to teach us. And so that is what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to have to use my notes. Sorry, because there are some names in here I don't want to forget. There's some incidences that I don't want to forget, but I will ad-lib across the way. So just be patient with me, okay? So Naomi Osaka, what can she teach us? She has the power to change our vision and our perceptions just by who she is. She is half Haitian and half Japanese, and yet she has the American culture as well. So she's got three ethnicities. And when you think about those three ethnicities, what can she bring to the table? Japan. The humility, the discipline, the focus. Haiti, the resourcefulness, the creativity, the balance. America, the confidence, the open-mindedness, or closed-mindedness in some cases, but that expansion. So she's able to use those three ethnicities to her advantage. And she can choose and navigate within all three. She is unhindered. So she has those opportunities. She doesn't have to negate one for another. She doesn't have to compromise one culture for another. She can embrace all three. So when you have those kind of opportunities, that is the foundation for greatness. To be able to have options, you can't beat that. So what kind of came to mind why I decided to focus on Naomi Osaka was because I saw this very, very short clip, and it said seven matches, 7 masks, 7 names. And the compare asked her, what message is she sending? And she said, what message do you get from it? Well, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but what message do you get from it? I don't think he answered, because there are times when people put those provocative questions in to try and trip you up. But Naomi is much too intelligent, much too emotionally resilient. And that is another trait, I believe, from the Japanese side, to be emotionally disciplined. So she didn't respond in a way he would have expected of a 22-year-old. Composed, calm, assertive. So she has so many traits and qualities. I had to choose her as the person we should be aspiring to be like. And I'm going to tell you the reasons why. It's got nothing to do with her race. Well, it might have, subliminally, it might have something to do with her race and ethnicities, but only because of the traits that the race and the nationality and the ethnicities and the identities, what they bring out in her. But she has traits that we can all aspire and acquire. So what is the message? Naomi bought 7 masks into the US Open, bearing the names of Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, Ahmaud Arbery, Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, and Philando Castile, and Tamir Rice. This was to raise awareness of racism and police brutality. All those people had died at the hands of police. So she's not afraid to use her position, the highest paid sports person. I don't know if it's a woman, but highest paid, 3 million she walked off the US Open with. Since 1995, apparently. And yet she doesn't feel that she has to compromise. She got rid of her coach because he was trying to put success over happiness, and she wasn't having it. How many people are brave enough to do that? Another quality, she's self-assured. So she became the first woman aged 22. Okay, let me just go back a bit. Naomi Osaka wins her second US Open title and the 3rd Grand Slam trophy, and that's when she walked off with $3 million US. She became the first woman aged 22 since Arantxa Sanchez Vicario in 1994 to win the US Open after dropping the first set. Can you imagine taking home $3 million just for a set, just for playing tennis? But it's not just about playing tennis, is it? It's an accumulation of skills and traits that I'm going to go through. So, during a 2-week stretch, Osaka wore a different mask bearing the names of victims of police brutality. And she intends to wear a different mask to 7 matches. She said she's restricting it to 7 because she just hasn't got, she's not sure she's going to attend more the matches that can equate with the number of deaths by police officers. So she's kind of just 7 matches and 7 masks and 7 names. Brilliant. When asked, what do you mean? Oh, I've already done that bit. So anyway, it's interesting how if you're not aware, and many of us are not, we can be tricked into exposing our silent messages. Now, in a sense, her message wasn't silent. She wore it silently across her face, not saying a word, but it was so powerful. George Floyd. Can you imagine? Trayvon Martin. People have to see that mask while she's playing. And it's drawing indirect attention to racism. What a powerful but silent way to send a message. And you have the power to do that. How many other people would be brave enough to do that? Not many. Not many. So, I was just wondering, how many times have you had an issue with someone and not wanted to say anything, and you've been goaded into revealing what it is you wanted to keep secret? And I was thinking about that when that compere asked her what she meant by the message. And it was like he was goading her to say what she meant by it. And the thing is that if you are unprepared, you can end up saying the wrong thing. And in that position, it can just destroy you. So it was so brilliant the way she answered by saying, what message did you get from it? She just switched it. So it is about also being composed, isn't it? She's composed. She's, like I said, she's emotionally intelligent. She's strategic in her thinking. So, not saying that Naomi wanted to keep her message secret, but she wanted people to interpret the message in their own way. It's a bit like a painter does with his artwork. It's a bit like diversity's dance routine. Its art is open to interpretation. And that is what with messages, they are open to interpretation. Things that are not spoken and things that are not clarified are open to interpretation. And depending on the perception and the mindset of the receiver is how they will interpret that message. You'll get people who interpret it negatively, and you'll get people who interpret it positively. But anything we put on ourselves, whether it's our image, it's open to interpretation. In fact, I wear lipstick, it could be open to interpretation. People could think, oh, she's vain. You know, the fact that I wear eyelashes, they could draw the same conclusion. Open to interpretation just by your image. So Naomi proved by responding in that way that not only is she a skillful sportswoman, but she's exercising emotional intelligence as well, which is what I said. So Naomi Osaka, Japanese mother, Tamaki Osaka, and Haitian father, Leonard Francois. Haiti, the home of Toussaint Louverture, a former slave who led the slave revolt in 1791. This is the background. This is where strength comes from. This is where resourcefulness comes from. This is where resilience comes from. And then Japanese women have had some of the most courageous, groundbreaking and inspiring women of all time. So she's got those two nationalities, for want of a better word, behind her, the traits of those two nationalities. And she's following in the footsteps of Tomo Gozen, a female warrior. I mean, it takes a warrior to stand on a pitch and have a mask with George Floyd on it. Can you imagine? And to drive to Minneapolis, to get on a plane to Minneapolis to attend a protest with her status. A millionaire walking with the protesters against police brutality. It takes a warrior to do that. So that's why I said she's standing in the steps of Tomo Gozen, a Japanese warrior. She's the highest earning female athlete of all time. And what does she teach us? Serving at 120 miles per hour, she is a testament to excellence. She's not afraid to put victims of racism in the spotlight. She's able to navigate between 3 nationalities and ethnicities to bring about mutual understanding through language and culture. Born in Osaka, Japan in 1997, where she was born. And it's interesting because I was thinking, what was I doing in 1997 when she was born? I mean, she's the world's highest paying athlete. And I thought, you know what? At that time, I was preparing to go to Angola. And I was thinking about how afraid I was to go to Angola because it was a peacekeeping mission. And, you know, we were told that we needed protection and we were given pay, you know, what do they call that pay? Where they give you a pay, you know, because it's a dangerous assignment. And I was thinking how I'd go over there and I'd not know anyone. And, you know, I was afraid of spiders and stuff like that. Lots of fears I had. And I remember feeling motivated just because I didn't want to rent and have somebody tell me that they were going to sell the house that I was living in, what I had called a home. So every month my landlady would say, oh, the oil prices is going up, I'm going to have to sell. And I felt so uncomfortable, so unstable. And I thought, how can I make enough money to get something stable to buy my own home? So that's what motivated me to take that risk and to go on a dangerous assignment. You know, and I went into helicopters and I had to meet military people and I had to meet, because of my role I was interviewing the equivalent of terrorist, I guess. But yeah, I was doing that, all of that, when Osaka was born, Naomi was born. And I was thinking that at that time I was feeling violence, feeling alone, feeling vulnerable, and I approached it with trepidation. And then I was thinking about Naomi, her background, her parents, especially her mother, received so much abuse because she was with a black man. And she couldn't even take her father's name. That's why she's called Naomi Osaka. She couldn't take her father's name, Francois, because her grandfather just wouldn't permit it. Osaka is the name of a part in Japan. And so apparently it's an important name. So she kept it, the mother kept it, and so did her children. And she was fortunate enough to have a husband that didn't kick up a stink about it. But they did know that despite living in Japan, they needed to live in America to have a bit more autonomy. So they brought her back to America, well, New York first of all. In when did she go to New York? I think it was 2004. Anyway, she was 3 years old when she went to New York, and she lived with her Haitian grandparents, and so she was influenced a lot by the Haitian culture, because you can imagine the grandparents, they're really traditional. So let's get back to this. So she obviously saw the disapproving grandparents. She obviously witnessed the racism against black people when she was young. I mean, people think that when you're young, you don't notice it or you don't realize the impact, but you do. And she also experienced isolation and rejection with her, through her mother. So, and it's a disgrace for Japanese to be with a black man. So these are the obstacles she faced, or the challenges. And Haiti is the place that Trump called a shithole. So I'm not surprised that she's not representing America. That's probably one of the reasons. She represents Japan. And it's amazing that although Haiti is looked down on, look what a Haitian man has produced. Look what his sperm has produced. He's born a genius. People do criticize places, don't they? And they criticize people. You never know what people are going to become. You never know. With the right foundation, you can become excellent. And I'm going to tell you what the foundation is. So if this video is a bit long, but it needs to be done. Okay, so let me try and be concise. So moved to New York. The fathers are citizens of New York. She was 3 years old and stayed with her Haitian grandparents, and they raised her for 6 years before moving to Florida. The move to Florida was so she could be taught tennis full time. Her formative years were fraught with change, but consistent, loving, and good parenting overrode what could have been an unstable upbringing. So the father watched Serena Williams play and decided that he would be the route. That would be the route for his daughter. So when parents take charge, and especially the father, because he obviously was respected by his wife, and he obviously had some authority in order to make those decisions, and for the children not to rebel against him and to follow through on what he wanted for them. So in that one statement, the father watched Serena Williams play and decided that would be the route for his daughter. That shows child obedience. But how do we know that what our parents want is best for us? But it shows that she trusted his authority. She trusted his decision. She trusted his motivation. And it could be said, should the parents' choice for the future be the parent's choice or the child's choice? If both are on the same page, then that's fine. Is it about trusting the parent's judgment? It's interesting because my mum told me that if I trained to be a secretary, I'd always have a job. So she brought in a Swedish tutor, a private tutor, to teach me touch typing. And it is true, actually. You know, I can always fall back on a secretarial job, despite what I do. Despite how high I get, I can always fall back on a secretarial role. And it's useful for what I do now, or, you know, in whatever job I do. Having secretarial skills and administrative skills is high value. People kind of look down on administrators, but the skills that they have and acquire over time, you can't pay for that. So, thank you, Mum. Yeah, she was right. So I wanted to be a fashion designer and an air hostess. I could have been if I wanted to, but I glamorized it. Even though I do my own thing, I've already talked about that. So Naomi's father taught her to play tennis based off of his observations of Selena. And this is called modeling or mirroring. When you look at somebody who is great and you decide, what traits does that person have that I can acquire to become like that person? And then what you do, you study that person, you study their traits, you literally spend all day and all night reading up about that person, emulating whatever it is that they do, so you can become great like them. And then once you've acquired the skills and you know what skills that person has and those traits, you then add your own touch. You then become your authentic self. You then add your creativity, your uniqueness to what you have learned. So you end up, even though you're mirroring in the sense, yes, you are taking on somebody's skills, you're actually building up your own individual style. That's what you're supposed to do anyway. If you're just copying somebody, that's not good enough. It's not good to copy. But watching traits, emulating traits, and adding your own personal touch, that is totally different. They call that modeling and they call it mirroring. So that's what the father did. He was more or less watching and studying Selena, and he decided to teach his daughters to play tennis. Can you imagine? They don't say he was a tennis player, but studying and mirroring. So, and by doing that, he became an expert, or his daughter became an expert, I should say. So what kind of traits did it show us that Naomi developed through her father's input, through her background, through her ethnicity, through her nationality? Moderation in all things. Well, I'm going to say what she said. She said, I always want to do well, but at the same time, I don't want to put too much burden on myself by keep having high expectations. So what she's saying, she's not saying that she mustn't have high expectations, but she mustn't have high expectations all the time. Because when you have high expectations all the time, that is pressure, which she doesn't want. Now, what does that statement tell you about Naomi? It tells you that she thinks she's good enough. It tells you that there should be moderation in all things. It tells you that she is self-disciplined. It tells you that she has balance. It tells you that she's able to self-regulate. It tells you that she's not a perfectionist, but she uses her craft perfectly. It shows her loyalty to her father, to her country, to her mother. It also, when I say her country, I should have said her mother and her father. That's where her loyalty lies. And it shows self-acceptance. Like I said, I am enough. She's developed the confidence of America trait, the humility of Japan, and the resourcefulness of Haiti. A combination of traits that have made her who she is. And then she has the commitment we're talking about what's made her great, how we can become great. So I'm just throwing out the different traits. I'm throwing out the different elements and the dynamics of what made Naomi Osaka reach where she is today, and how, whether or not we can do the same if we follow in her footsteps. And don't say, oh, I've had this past and I've had that past, because I'm going to tell you afterwards that regardless of your past, you can become great. Okay, so we need commitment. Father decided to commit himself to watching Serena Williams play. Okay, he's obviously, like I said, an authority in the home and they respect him. And he decided his daughters would play for Japan as opposed to the United States. And I bet that is because Trump called Haiti a shithole. I bet you that's why. Might be wrong. He might have had other reasons. I mean, he did say it's to give his daughter more opportunities. So, maybe I should just take him at his word and not, hypothesize. So let me take that back, even though it's already out there. So, yeah. So that's why he said it will give her more opportunities. So in Japan, she had developed even more different training styles. And that's what I'm saying, when opportunities are so important, well-placed opportunities, effective opportunities, that is another foundation you need. Because by giving her the opportunity of playing in Japan, she developed different styles. So whereas Serena Williams only had the American method of training and teaching, Naomi was able to have the American and the Japanese. So she was able to combine both styles and the discipline. Can you imagine of the Japanese culture? How that propelled her to greatness. So she has no limits. She took advantage of her opportunities, which gave her expansion, and she was able to embrace new styles. She can represent America if she wants, Japan and Haiti. And at 22 years old, she says she feels accomplished. In 2013, Naomi went pro before turning 16. The foundation for her excellence had been laid. Love and nurturance from her parents, discipline, commitment and focus. That's through daily training, full time. Training and mastering a craft, the Japanese style, her father and the modelling. Taking advantage of opportunities, in Japan, and Serena's coach, who taught her afterwards, or who coached her. Resilience against challenges, the boos after winning, her upbringing, the racism that she encountered, or her mother encountered. And she's not a sellout. She shows happiness. She prefers happiness over success, which is why she left her coach. Because, a lot of these coaches, it's all about money, isn't it? All about money. And she said she ain't going there. She wants happiness. And when you have happiness and when you have the ability to choose, you can make decisions. Now, if she had that coach, do you think she could go on that pitch with that mask on? Do you think if she was under certain people's jurisdiction, she could wear a T-shirt that says Black Lives Matter? She wouldn't be able to. She would need to conform. She would need to obey because of the money. So she's got power to a degree to do as she chooses. And of course, she's got the loyalty. She's representing Japan. That's her mother's, that's due to her mother's sacrifice. At 18, she qualified to enter her first Grand Slam at the Australian Open in 2017, age 20. Sasha Beijing, Serena's hitting partner, became her coach. And she beat Serena Williams and won the US Open, her childhood model. Can you imagine? You have you have some kind of hero. We all have our little idols. But she had Serena Williams as her idol, and she's actually able to beat Serena. But the interesting thing is that because she had Serena's coach, she had the advantage not only of the skills that she'd acquired in Japan, the skills that her father had mirrored, plus the coach. So she was set to go. She was set to go. So that's why I said modelling and effectively and rightly placed opportunities helped her to supersede Serena. And what's interesting is that when that happened, this Japanese noodle company by the name of Nissin portrayed her as white. Can you imagine? They had to take it down after a couple of days. She wasn't having it. But it's typical because similarly, remember, I don't know how many of you saw that advert where they showed her as white and Serena as a gorilla. Do you remember that? And it's typical because when the people are the best, I mean, you can't do that with Usain Bolt, of course, but somebody like Naomi, because she's the best at what she does, it's almost like the white people want a part of it, not the white people, but the white elite want to benefit from her greatness. And so they paint her as white as possible. Well, they did that, in certain media outlets. And I wanted to say the best and change their colour. So what was interesting is that by changing her colour to white, because they wanted her to represent a certain maybe status or class, what does that remind you of? Doesn't it remind you of the Christ, who, because they want the Christ to be looked up to, they've painted him white? That's what came to my mind when I saw them trying to paint her, a black woman. Well, she's quite dark, even though she's mixed, she's quite dark, but trying to paint her as a white woman. And the first thing that came to my mind was, that's what they did with the Christ. Because Naomi is probably the same colour what the Christ was if he was born in Jerusalem or Bethlehem or wherever they claim he was born. So it's very, very interesting what they're trying to do. If there wasn't an uproar, Naomi would have gone down in history as a white woman. And there would have been no one to challenge that. And even then, there's still a few pictures going around of her as white. So in June 2020, she flew to Minneapolis, like I said, to join the protest against police brutality and George Floyd. She had the mask on. During the Western and Southern Open, she walked onto the court with Black Lives Matter t-shirt, which shows that she's fearless and uncompromising. In September 2020 US Open, she wore masks displaying victims of police brutality and drawing attention to racism. How many of us feel robbed of the components that could make us great? Like, people can look at all of what Naomi Osaka has achieved and say, oh, she's had all these opportunities. Oh, she was born in Japan. Oh, she had a father who did this, and I didn't have a father, and I was raised up in a single home, and I had this happen to me, and I had that happen to me. And people make excuses for not being great. Do you find that you yourself make excuses for not being successful, and you kind of blame whatever's happened in your past for not achieving your full potential? So many people do that. So you could say unstable and ineffective parenting, inconsistency in upbringing, unstable home environment, unhealthy parenting styles has given you lack of commitment, low resilience, low self-esteem, marginal outcomes, and it makes you question your identity. But does that history have to hinder us? We need to decide who we want to be loyal to. Choose a side. That's the first important thing. What did Naomi Osaka do? She chose a side. She could have chosen Haiti. She could have chosen the United States, but she chose Japan. She decided on who she was going to be loyal to. So that's the first thing. You have to be committed to something and have your passion and your loyalty connected to that thing that you're passionate about. So you need to love it. You need to be thinking about it all the time, whatever it is, regardless of what it is. Like I said, people talk about, they started making cakes and they end up being these famous, franchises all over the world. It doesn't matter how trivial people try to make it sound. If it's your dream, you nurture that dream. You pursue that dream. You focus on that dream. You make one choice, and that is it. And concentrate on developing whatever that is. Okay? And then it's about resilience building, because if you've had a terrible upbringing and it's been unstable and you feel kind of compromised and you feel down about your past and you feel disadvantaged, it's about standing up to criticism, facing feedback, facing the knocks and the falls, and getting up and saying, look, this is not going to break me. It's not going to break me. I'm not going to allow it to break me. So when people are pointing fingers and doing all sorts, just get up, start all over again. That's how you build up your resilience. You don't build up your resilience by hiding in a corner, by not speaking out, by not standing up. That's not how you build resilience. You need to face your enemies in order to build resilience. You need to be pushed down in order to get up and build your resilience. And daily pattern changing. So you do this slowly. It's not like you do it all in one go. Maybe one day you'll say, okay, I'm really worried about doing this, but I'm going to do it. And you make an attempt. Like, I have a problem watching violence. No matter how I try to attempt it, I still can't get to watch it. And I don't think it's going to benefit me. But sometimes I'd like to do it just so I can build up that resilience. I'd like to be able to watch a movie, but sometimes the violence is so graphic. And I think to myself, no, I'm going to look for something else that I'm going to build my resilience up to. But I'm just using that as an example. And what I started doing was trying to watch a little bit of violence on a daily basis. But it got to the point where I'm saying, is this constructive? How is this going to benefit me by making me immune to violence? I'm just going to be like everybody else. So no, I decided I look for other things in order to build my resilience. But all I'm saying to you is that look for something that you're worried about, and every day face a little bit of it at a time and build it up. I don't know if you've seen these people with phobias, and they kind of put you in a room that whatever it is you're afraid of, they put it in the middle of the room. First you go in the room and then you get closer and closer and closer to it until you actually touch it and pick it up, whatever it is. And that's what building resilience is about. Okay, and then you want to develop stability and invoke consistency, and you can do that by whether it's by logging what you need to do during the day, having a to-do book, and you do things the same time every day. It might just be one thing. Don't put a whole list and then try to stick to the list. That's asking too much. You do one thing a day at the same time. It could even be cleaning your teeth, but you want to build up stability. You want to build up consistency. So it can be as simple as cleaning your teeth. You decide at 8 o'clock you're going to clean your teeth, not for any other reason, but to build consistency. Okay, so it's about, it's all a part of becoming successful and becoming great. And you won't realize how all of this comes together, but it does. Naomi Osaka, she's proved it. Look after yourself. So important, look after yourself. Replace bad habits with good ones. Pamper yourself. Make sure you keep yourself clean. Make sure you keep your environment pleasant. You don't have to overdo it, but just make sure you feel pretty good about yourself. Good enough. You don't have to look perfect, but good enough. Do the best that you can possibly can with what you have. Okay, and then that will, and after you start nurturing yourself and replacing bad habits, whatever those habits are, and like I said, it's a daily process. You don't have to do everything at once. Just do a bit at a time. Just a tiny little bit at a time. If you have a bad habit, what could a bad habit be? Cursing, maybe. You know, people have cursing jars. Every time they curse, they have to put £1 in a jar to stop them from cursing. I mean, I'm just saying that's kind of the kind of thing that you need to do. You just kind of, by being conscious about the part of you want to change, it will eventually change. And by putting £1 in every time you curse, that will help you to be conscious. It will raise it to your consciousness and you will eventually stop swearing. Skill building. That will build up your confidence. You know, what skills do you have? Some people, they take their skills for granted. People think, oh, I ain't got no skills, I can't do nothing. And, you know, the smallest skill is important. Some people, you know, they're brilliant at making beds. They're brilliant at ironing. You know, people underestimate their skills. They, you know, cutting hair or putting on makeup or whatever it is. We all have skills. So it's about building your skills and improving on your skills, recognizing what skills you have and improving on them. That's what that is about. And then you'll be an expert. And people, they think about, what can I be an expert on? You can even be an expert on cleaning your bloody teeth. Not everybody knows how to clean their teeth. You know what I mean? You could be an expert on anything. People take their skills for granted. And I know that's not a good example, but I'm trying to think out of my, you know, off the top of my head, and I can't think of anything at the moment. But I'm sure you get my meaning. And then, who are you? You might say, you know, try and understand who you are. You can say who you are by saying, oh, I'm a woman, I'm a teacher, I'm a counsellor, I'm a DJ. That's not who I am. I am who I say I am. And that's what you need to do. You don't have to be fitting in a box. You are who you say you are. And then you're building up that profile of who you say you are. Not who society says you are. Not who the community says you are. Not who your parents say you are. It's who you say you are. And so, and then it's about overcoming the victim mentality. The majority of us have experienced some form of persecution, bias, prejudice in the workplace, regardless of race, regardless of colour, regardless of class, regardless of gender, disability. We all experience some form of discrimination. So don't use that as an excuse not to be successful and not to be great. We've got some blacks who are victims of racism, poor victims of classism, women victims of discrimination, elderly, you know, they're victims of isolation, disabled. They can also be victimizations, mentally ill, they're taboo. We need to rise above the persecution and look for what is valuable within all of us. And then, only then, can we become successful and great, just like Naomi Osaka. So I hope you found this interesting. I'm sorry it went on for so long, but as long as it's touched a nerve and has made a change, then I've done my job. Bye-bye.